It is Friday Night Live with Ken and Cheryl. She's Cheryl.
He's Ken.
And we have Angela Wilson with us as a guest coming up right after this. So very nice to have you with us tonight, Angela. I have to ask about the website and Exploriest.
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Ken and Cheryl, or whichever. Explorist is the pronunciation. Okay. It is combination of explore and catalyst is how it came about.
Well, very nice, because it's very interesting that you and I are engaged in very similar enterprises, and that's educating people about the accessible options there are.
Correct.
And your focus is Colorado, right? So why don't you give us a little background about how you got started on what you do?
Okay. Well, my name is Angela Wilson, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a parent of a child with intellectual and physical disabilities who was really frustrated by standard travel websites. The big ones, Expedia, Booking, TripAdvisor, those sort of things. The information that my family required was not available on those large platforms. So it's like, okay, well, if nobody's going to make it, I guess it's up to me. So I am in Colorado, and I'm starting it in Colorado, but hopefully going to other metropolitan areas across the country and around the world. But this site provides those details so you can narrow down depending on the specific areas that you require. Say it's a must-have that you have certain size bathrooms, or that most of the videos at a museum are captioned, or there's ASL translation, or the bed is a certain height in a hotel room. So being able to decide on your own and filter the results so it provides you the best match for the specific needs that you and your family have.
Yeah, and that is so valuable. Cheryl and I have explored a little bit today. You want to talk about what we've done?
Today in San Pedro?
I'll talk about it a little bit and why.
Well, we're here in San Pedro, and we're trying to find out, what's really accessible. And while some of the websites say accessible, that doesn't always tell you a lot, as you know. Mm-hmm. So we decided to take a bus, which was accessible. And so we had to push uphill like 4 blocks to get to the bus. And then we took a bus across town to an area by a lighthouse. But then we wanted to go up. The highest spot with the best view was the Korean Bell. And that was a really, really uphill push. Somebody stopped and helped Ken push me for a while to get us up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful lookout. And then from there, we went downhill almost all the way. We went downhill to the lighthouse, the Furman Lighthouse, which is a nice, almost like an antique lighthouse. It's older. It's not particularly tall. It's only about 4 stories. It does have a lift on the outside to get you from the sidewalk up in, but we didn't have time for that. Then we went, but getting downhill from there was tricky too. It's like hold the brakes.
And then, you don't want to run that. You don't want to have burning smells following you.
And then from there we went down to the aquarium and the beach. Nice. And that was even steeper, I think, but shorter. And then we went across to a local craft where you can make some of your own crafts with the artists, or you can buy the crafts from the artists. Nice. It's all local here from San Pedro. That was a lot of fun. That was very big. And by then we were really hungry. And, if we had gotten on and off the bus more often, we only took the bus one way, part of the way. So it was a lot of walking today for Ken and pushing. But there they had, so we were hungry. We had planned on eating at like a local restaurant, but instead we ate a food truck because we were hungry, and we saw one and everybody said it was good. And it was excellent. It was a lot of food for what they charged. And
Nice.
Uh,
The interesting thing about it is we checked with the Visitors Bureau, and they didn't really have any information about what was accessible. She had some ideas
Mhm.
that she shared when we talked to her. And I have visited with several visitors bureaus lately that have no accessibility information, in their town or wherever they are. And you're like, okay, what if somebody wants to come? How do they find the information?
oh, that's like the lighthouse. They said the lighthouse is accessible and it does have the lift to take you up in the lighthouse. And I don't know if there's bathrooms in the lighthouse because we didn't go in. It wasn't open when we were there. Everything right now has really short hours, sometimes only 3 hours a day. And but they do have outside restrooms, and you go in there and there's a whole bunch of regular ones, and you're passing all these regulars. And then you get to the back and there's extended ones, but they're only about 6 inches longer than the short ones, and they're not any wider. I said, I can't even close the door behind my wheelchair. So
I've run into that issue before as well at a restaurant.
So
and the word accessible, if you ask 10 people what's accessible, you'll get 243 answers.
Right.
Because disability is so vast. It's not just physical, it's audio, it's visual,
Yes.
There's so many different definitions.
But there is one really nice accessible bathroom at the beach, and there's a sidewalk to get there. So that was, I wouldn't say it was kind of like I wouldn't say nice, but it was very large, and it was clean. So
those are two of my favorite things about restrooms. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have to be excited about that, but yes. It's like, yes, jackpot.
Yeah.
Right.
This will work.
Yes, exactly.
But and again, you go to the point of why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? We're going out to Catalina Island. At least I expect we're going to Catalina Island to do some more of the same things. We spent today, and if I had scheduled a little better, we could have probably spent another day here finding accessible things to see and do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's why isn't there a list? And so I had a conversation with them about improving their website, try to make it a little more helpful. So the ones that you're putting on your website, are they ones that you've personally explored and find out, or you're relying on them to provide information? How are you getting your information?
Well, currently Explorist in Denver, mostly in Denver, because I wanted to start with a test case. I wanted to prove that there was enough interest from the community that they would be even interested in that information, and then have enough information that there could be some sort of exchange to start with before going everywhere. So I started this during the heat of COVID. So I started Explorist in January 2020. I have the best timing when it comes to a tourism industry business. But a lot of it was the 300, there's about 3,000 listings, but the depth with all those granular details are about 320 and things to do. And that has been myself and my family. I mean, I drag them out whenever. It's like, if it's not 2 feet of snow in Denver, we're going to do something this weekend. So there's a lot of new buildings. So that, thank goodness for a lot of the stuff, it really wasn't an issue, the physical accessibility. But now myself and my team are going to start requesting information from the businesses, because we've shown, hey, there's thousands of people every month that come to Explorist organically. So it's not from paid media. And we can say, hey, there are people that want this information. They want to spend money. And if your information's not on there, they may think you're just not accessible, or It could just be more, just tougher to walk in because you don't know what to expect. That's a lot of the frustration that I felt and that a lot of people with whom I've spoken have felt. And it's like, it's just kind of a pain because you don't know what you're walking or rolling into or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about dragging your family out. Do you know what my wife's nickname is?
Uh-oh.
She's prop.
Wait, I'm sorry?
A prop. Yeah,
Oh,
you know, like
prop.
on a stage, you got something. Think
Gotcha.
gun is a prop. You know, well, she's my prop because you can't have a video about wheelchair travel without somebody in a wheelchair, right? So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My son is underage. He's 12. So I'm trying to say, okay, yes, it's about disability and our family, but I don't want to be like, pushing him and saying, hey, I don't want to be that exploitive type of parent, but it's really just showing what you can do if depending on your confines and what accessibility or what's accessible enough. A lot of times it doesn't have to be absolutely 100%, as you know. So if it's accessible enough for what we need, that's a win in my category. But yeah, I don't want him to be a mascot, kind of like being a prop.
At least I get a lot of cruises out of it. So
there you go.
Comes with fringe benefits.
Shh, don't tell my son. I'm not going to let him watch this because he'll start wanting even more.
I would say, because, and I may have told you this when we talked earlier, but we started doing this because we found a reference from one of the cruise lines that said on their private island they had beach wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
That was all it said. And so
I don't know if they're broken. You don't know. Yeah.
Where do you get them?
How many are there? Is there just one?
Is it first come, first serve?
What does it cost? All of these things,
are
flying through my mind.
Yeah.
And actually, let me say hi. We got an audience here. Hey, Pam, how are you doing today? Sorry, I've been chatting with and forgot about you there. Oh, Pam wants to be a prop.
I can see.
She's going to join the waiting list as a prop.
Well, we don't go on many cruises, so you better stay with those two.
And I was going to say, like with the beach wheelchair, what I didn't realize is there's a lot of different types of beach wheelchairs.
Yes.
So some of them are very low to the ground, which would be perfect for a small or short person. I'm not. I'm like all legs. So now the ones they had at the private islands are the taller ones, and that works good for me. It's harder to push for poor Ken. But then there's some that are easier to push, but you have to, I'm like sitting like 6 inches off the floor in them. So then I have to get up. And so one time we rented, well, we didn't rent, you could rent one, but they let us have it to make videos. And I said, well, it's a fine wheelchair for a child or someone who doesn't weigh much and you can lift them. But after the third time of me getting myself out of that, I just used it for a walker after that. That was just impossible. And then they have some that float, but they're all the ones I've seen that float are very low to the ground, really low. And again, it's more, I think they're more designed for children that can, you can help lift them a little bit better. Because I got in one in, where was that? It was in Mexico somewhere. I got in one and I thought I'd never get out of that. Ken had to lift me out of that thing.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is it's for people to see those things. And that's why we're focusing on doing what we do is in a video format, is because somebody can see the room. And, a good example is we did the last cruise where we had a scooter from, we had a scooter provided by Scootaround. It was a Will CI, it's really slick because it's actually a power chair rather than a scooter. But you could go right up to the table and she could eat at it. And, so and it was
Yeah, you
Cheryl.
don't have the thing right in the front
Yeah,
that you have to.
and she had a lot of fun driving
It
it.
was like a rocket. It was really
I'm pretty sure she got
Try
airborne
and run him
some-
over. No.
But you know, she wore a helmet cam,
But
and
I
he
was
got
able
in the
to-
elevator and spun in a circle in the elevator.
yeah.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
really
just-
good.
A small elevator you can turn around in it. That was pretty neat.
But what happens is that then people see that and they say, okay, that would work for me.
Right. It's about, yeah, the expectations. If they see it, oh, I see somebody else doing it. Yeah, why not me?
Yeah, the electric wheelchair works much better on cruises because there are tighter, smaller spaces and just,
Right.
so much easier to get around and takes up less room in your cabin.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we went on a Disney cruise, 4 years ago when we got a large we bought a push chair, so it's like it's a 3-wheel and it's like a bob stroller, but it can go all the way to adults.
Oh.
And yeah, it was a very tight squeeze in the elevators, but when we were in Europe, the cobblestones, there's no way with a standard wheelchair, even an electric one, the wheels would have gotten caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really depends. A lot of people, well, even knowing what to expect, like, oh, now I know when I'm going here, I should bring a collapsible wheelchair versus my standard wheelchair because there's this, that, and the other. But
Right.
yes, it's all about the visual. Oh, okay. Especially with not just a picture of it, having somebody actually use it
Yes.
and be able to, and not just measurements. Oh my, that's some of the worst stuff I've seen. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I actually bought a tape measure while we were here because there's a couple things. We're staying in a room, and it's interesting because so many places, and I won't name this particular property, just being really nice, but we knew it was going to have a bench seat in the shower instead of because they didn't have a roll-in shower, so, and we're like, oh, that's okay. But
Right.
the interesting thing is guess where the handheld shower head was mounted?
On the opposite side.
And guess how high it was? It was in the
Probably
perfect
about
mount.
6 feet.
Yeah. And you're
There's
like, okay, how does somebody in a wheelchair deal with that? Because you can't, you'd have to flip it and hope you could get it to flip out
and not hit you in the head.
Yeah.
You don't want to get knocked out just trying to wash yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it is, to me, I guess it's
out of sight, out of mind. I never looked before our son started to lose his mobility. I never looked at how close parking was to the front, what curb cuts, and different grades. Like you mentioned, if it was steep or more flat, stairs, all that stuff. It just didn't cross my mind until you're really presented with it.
Right. Here in San Pedro, I will say that nearly all the curbs do have the cutouts on the corners,
Nice.
on both directions. There's a few we found didn't. Well, one we had to go down like to the edge and come back. You had to make like a U because there was no cutout, but it was a beautiful view out there. So it was okay having to go around and take some pictures on the way.
Did they have that yellow with the circles?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's for people with visual issues.
right.
So
Yeah.
they're for multiple accessible needs depending on the intersection of where your life is. I never knew what those were either. I'm like, okay. If I was wearing very low heeled or low soled shoes, I'd be like, oh, why am I stepping on these? Because they stick up. And then it's like, oh, that's why. So that you can feel it if you have visual issues. It's great. The things people come up with.
Yeah, they have them on almost all the corners. I think some maybe
That's
they're
great.
have never been repaired in a long time, didn't, but anything that looks the last 10, 15 years it had it on it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nice.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Now
would
we
say
also got to get the crosswalks to have sound on
the
all. Wow.
in California, they're pretty good about
Well, yeah,
California.
California.
Yeah, I would say they're very proactive about disability. But that park it was a state park. The fact that the bathroom wasn't accessible, somebody should have picked up on that. And it's one of those things that they, when they get a chance, needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think that is a really, really old property. I mean, you can just take one look at the bathroom, but this is really old, and it was originally federal, and then it was handed to the state. So who knows? They evidently have done a lot of work on the actual lighthouse. It's just that outer bathroom, and there may be a bathroom in the lighthouse. We didn't really go to see. So.
Well, Title II of the ADA, I think it's Title II, is state and government facilities have a higher bar than public accommodations, which is, I believe, part of Title III of ADA. So, yeah, well, if you want to make some quick bucks, you could always write it up and talk to the Justice Department, but that may be a little excessive.
We had an interesting experience flying, and if you fly, you probably encountered things like this. But I was pretty unhappy. We flew to Dallas. We left out of Raleigh. We gate checked her wheelchair because her wheelchair is a reclining wheelchair because she can't sit upright for a very long period of time. We had 5-hour layover in Dallas. So
5 hours?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So we get there and we're standing in the jetway and waiting. And finally, the pilot for the outgoing flight comes up and said, well, let me check and see if it's down there somewhere. No, it's not down there. So they said it got sent to the luggage claim.
But we were to layover.
Yeah. And her wheelchair, we think it's outgassing on the arms. She got brand new armrests. But anyway, it triggers the little chemical thing. And I'm like, okay, I do not want to have to go out and explain why I'm pushing a wheelchair that I don't need through security. Because that was question one that I could just see that going sideways really quickly with TSA. They're not particularly friendly. Right. And then it alarms, and now I see me staying there in my BVDs and, while they check me and I'm like, no, there's just nothing good here. So we talked to the gate agent and they said, well, there's nothing we can do, which was not the right thing to tell me anyway, because that just kind of raised my blood pressure a little bit. We went up to the lounge and they said, well, we'll see what we can do to help. And they come back a little bit later and tell us that they have checked it to LA and it'll be at the luggage carousel in LA.
And it's already gone on another plane. I had a really long day. I just found a chair where I could lean way back, and I'd lean back to the right, and I'd lean back to the left, lean back as much as I could. But and then when they finally got me my chair, they're like, "Did you want to lay back in it?" When I got to LA, and I'm like, "No, I just need to get to a hotel."
Right.
But it was interesting that I reached out to. There was a person that was appointed as director of customer service, and she has one other thing in her title. I don't remember. I don't want to get it wrong. But anyway, there was a post about announcing her new position with this airline, and so in that I just commented about my frustration with that, and she PM'd me and said, "Listen, her chair will be at the jet bridge when you get to LA."
And it was. I was waiting for me.
It's so upsetting you have to make a stink about it, though.
Well, yeah.
It's like, what? Would you check my legs to LAX if I didn't? I mean, this is not a luxury. This is a mandatory piece of durable medical equipment. It's not just, let's have fun and push me around the airport or something. No.
I don't think they even understand that there's a big difference in how wheelchairs fit people other than the width. Right. The width is just one little tiny measurement about how they all work.
Yeah. And I was going to say, so I'm hopeful because this person, she's going to be in charge customer service, and she has something to do with accessibility as well. So I'm hopeful that maybe she'll have some positive impact. It's early days. She's brand new in the job. And the bigger the corporation, the harder it is to change. But the other thing about it, and I don't know if you deal with this with your son, is we were on a A321neo, and that is the ultimate progression of let's make everything smaller. The seats are, the spacing on the seats are really tight. Everything's narrow. You can just barely get a rollerboard down if you turn it sideways. If you have one that you have to pull straight, it's not going to go down the aisle. You're going to have to carry it. The bathroom on this thing is the size of a pantry. Like a little dish pantry.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, Cheryl could never get in there, turn around, and use the restroom. Now, how can that be ADA compliant?
The airlines, I think, have a pass. What is it? The Air Carriers Act. Yeah, they have some sort of opt out.
Yeah, I just try not to. I just go right before I get on the plane, and I don't drink a lot before I get on the plane, and I just really try to go all the way. I've only, out of 10 flights, I might use the bathroom once. But
we've never been on a flight, because I've been drinking some coffee. I had to use the facilities, and I have never seen a restroom any smaller than that. And I'm like, it is, I'm not a big boy, but I'm not small. And it's like, okay, I think I could turn around in here, but
you don't want to have to hold your breath just to get in.
Yeah.
Come on.
Get a shoehorn.
Crowbar. Get you in there.
Yeah. But it's you start to think about, okay, this and this is probably something you're aware of, and there's some groups, some disability groups working on it, but there is no requirement that they have a game plan in place to evacuate disabled passengers in case of an emergency.
Where the first on, last off is.
Yeah. Well, but if you're not capable of a slide by yourself, guess what? Nothing to help you with. Now, I interviewed for the show probably a year ago now, somebody that's working on it, and there's a company that makes it's like a transfer seat, and it has the ability to help strap somebody upright if they don't have any upper body control. It basically fills several of the needs that that the airlines don't make any provision for. And it serves as an emergency evacuation help as well. But it's like, why?
Well, at least I have a 12-year-old, so my husband and I could probably somehow wrangle him out of there, especially with two of us. I'm 5'6", and my son's probably about right here. So yeah, not for much longer. But if we needed to, we'd just put him over our shoulder like some equipment that firefighters just put all the.
But I hope they don't make planes much smaller either, because I have really long legs. I'm like all legs,
right?
And even so, it's just I need that leg. They can't get it much tighter. I'll have to go to first class.
Ooh, there you go. You're a prop in first class. I love it. I believe that the industry, certain parts of the industry, are trying to find a way that people will not have to leave their wheelchair to fly, like having a tie down system and having some way to get certain chairs that are already there out, but still have the strength that you need to have in case of a collision. Or
I think the organization
you don't want to say crash, but in case of
in case of unexpected sudden landing. Yeah, there we go.
That too.
Yeah, I think the organization is All Wheels Up is what it's called. It's working on a lot of these things. Yeah. And you hope to see it change. But I think that what you're doing is so important. And and like I said, we do things a little bit differently, but in both cases,
yeah.
it's just trying to get the information so people can
Yeah.
know that they can go and have fun and enjoy things, and to know when it won't fit them either, because that's as important.
Right.
You know, imagine your son's disappointment if you went somewhere with the expectation it would work for him, and you find out no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know,
A lot of people I've talked to are like, I just don't travel much anymore or even at all. It is just way too much of a headache to find the information, if you can even find the information. And if you're told one thing and it's completely wrong, yeah, it can ruin your trip.
Yeah.
One thing I'm going to
Even
say,
if it's just around town.
about our trip this time, one good point was the help at it was LAX. Right?
Yeah.
At LAX was wonderful. I mean, we got there, they had my wheelchair, but then the airport transport person, whatever, he said, he asked, is someone picking you up? Where are you going from here? And we said taxi. And so he says, I'll take you exactly where you need to go. You have to get on a bus, and then the bus will take you to the Uber taxi section.
Oh, nice.
They have like an out section, but they're trying to reduce congestion right at the terminal, not have cars piled up. And I actually liked the system. I thought it worked really well. If you knew that's where you needed to go, it's an fully accessible bus. But I was able to. They had a lot of people on it. I didn't want to hold everybody up, so I just stepped into the bus. But they did have a thing that would come down and you could roll onto the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there you get over where the taxis are, and they just hollered, hey, this one needs, a taxi for a wheelchair. And it went very quickly, smoothly, and they were so friendly and helpful after the deal with the airline. That was nice.
Well, unfortunately, having your expectations met makes you feel, because of what happened before, makes you feel like it's yay, but it shouldn't. It should be the bare minimum. And I don't want to be excited about the bare minimum because of concerns and just not being, I hate the word accommodated, but just being treated like everybody else. It's just like, I don't want to have a crappy time and then, oh, this is what I should expect. And yay, no, it's be across the board, that there be no barriers.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting is doing what we do. I have found things that are accessible that I had never expected to find accessible.
For example, yeah.
How about a safari in Africa and live in the bush being fully accessible?
Well, wheelchair accessible,
Wheelchair
accessible. With
lift. Lift. Into the back of it. Flat boards in the room. They set the bed up so you can transfer. Now I don't know that they could accommodate a Hoyer lift if you needed one, but they had. They even have a way to make an accessible bush toilet, so that if you needed it and you're out in the bush, that they can, they have a shelter and a all the things they need to make function. We're not talking.
Yeah, I'm never doing that, but
well,
I mean the bathroom in the bush. No, I'll pass. I have no. Well, besides me keep tearing my ACL and having to be on crutches on and off. Yeah. But no, I'll pass on the toilet in the bush.
But, see, that's the kind of thing. When I do interviews, that's probably one of the first questions I ask, because if you're going to be in somewhere, what about accessible bathrooms? If there's somebody's doing tours, what about accessible bathrooms? I did an interview with somebody in Romania, somebody in Italy, both that run accessible tours. And they said, we know where the accessible bathrooms are, and we verify ourselves what they are. And we don't trust the company that says, we got an accessible bathroom. Yeah, after you climb three steps to get to it,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you can get in, except you got to go up. It's like, oh my God. Are you
Okay,
serious?
I have to share this story. This was we had a young lady on the show a long time ago, and she had some great stories. But she was in New Zealand, and she was going to get like a little short trip harbor cruise kind of thing, and she checked, and they said yes, we have an accessible bathroom, and they showed a picture, and it looked nice, like an accessible bathroom.
Mhm.
And she didn't need the facility, but she wanted to see it. So she started to go towards it, and there was a big beam, that was like 8 or 10 inches high in the path to get the wheelchair. So you had to go over the beam to get to the accessible, really pretty bathroom. Made a great picture, but
All these fails. Some of those pictures are really funny. You just search like accessible fail it's like, yeah, okay, right up a ramp. Let's put a big tree right in the middle of it. Okay, that's some dumb stuff. Yeah.
well, we had a little of that today because
Uh-oh.
along the sidewalk or in the middle of the sidewalk, they had lights. And sometimes there was enough space to go by them. One place they had cut like a V into the side of the hill so you could get around it, but it worked.
Yeah.
Then there was plants and dirt and stuff coming down the hills that nobody had cleaned off. And we managed to make it through all of that to get where we needed to go. But it was
off-road. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a little 4x stuff, it's okay.
I want to come back because there's a couple things we missed here. Like there's a maritime museum that should be accessible, which we didn't get to. And there's also a battleship that they even added an elevator to so that the wheelchairs can get down into it. So at least part of it. So we missed that too. But that's for another trip, or someone maybe else can make a video. We can link to it.
There you go.
Well, we'll be out here, back out. It's between San Pedro and Long Beach. There's lots of reasons why we would come here to sail. So, so you said you guys did one Disney cruise, and was that not a good cruise for you? Or
No, oh my God, Disney's amazing. They have gone above and beyond, especially our son does not have upper body torso control. And he needs assistance with toileting. So he had a wristband on. As long as we got him in there and settled, and he had already gone to the restroom and we made sure his hands were washed, they would call us and we would stop once an hour just to check so he could be with other kids. Because who wants to hang out with their parents when you're 12?
Oh, no.
I wish, but yes, 13 is like in 2 weeks. So, yeah, he's going to be like even more arm's length. But Disney, we knew there were tenders and not everything was at a port. So their ADA phone line, they have a dedicated accessible 800 number. Every question I asked, no matter if it was about a private tour, like one of their excursions, or the room, they were like, we're on it and we'll let you know, and really forthcoming with that. I've recently, we planned on another cruise line. I don't want to say what it rhymes with, but it was like, yeah, we might be able to find out. Give us a call back in like 2 weeks. Really?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get our money.
I would say that we've had, and I'm fortunate because of what we do, that we have contacts at the highest level with all our ADA officers. But in general, we've had good success with Carnival, with Celebrity, and with Royal Caribbean. And NCL.
Princess had Princess had 30 blind people on the time we were on, and they did great. It was amazing. It was good. They made everybody else wait to get on board until the blind people were orientated, and then they let other accessible, people needing accessibility get on next, along with the suite people, and then everybody else. But they explained to everybody the reason it's taken so long is we had some, people we had to take care of first, and everybody was cool with that. It was all right. So.
That's great. There are some cruise lines that are getting like, what is it? Getting, oh, shoot, I can't think of it. Sensory. If you're on the spectrum,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you're on
actually,
the
most
autism spectrum, that they are like being certified or certain plan. And I'm like, even just thinking about that, I wish that was the standard and it wasn't woohoo, yay. But at least finally, even though ADA was passed 30 odd years ago, finally it's like, oh, you're kind of thinking that everyone, not just everyone that's abled or doesn't have any limitations or any barriers, but actually everybody.
Yeah. I was going to say it was interesting because so many of them, in fact, it spurred me to think outside of just mobility in the things that we think about it and I write about and people I interview, because there are so many other kinds of disabilities that some of them are completely hidden and you'll never know.
Right.
You know, a good example is PTSD. Most of the time you may never know that somebody's suffering. But for them, their world is very much different than the world we interact with. On the children or people on the spectrum, noises and things like that. You know, people with hearing challenges, with vision challenges, and I would say that in general, most of the cruise lines are doing a good job of being prepared to deal with it. They typically, on pretty much all of the cruise lines, they have a special colored lanyard for anybody that has cognitive disabilities of any kind.
That's awesome. I hadn't seen that.
And the reason is
great.
because it applies for dementia, for Alzheimer's, for anybody, because you could have somebody that is acting in a way that is unexpected. You know, and the way they're behaving is something might cause alarm for some people. But when they see the lanyard, they know, okay, this person, this is not somebody that is drunk and we need to throw them in the brig. This is somebody that needs some extra attention and some calm and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I also ran into a really cool organization. Are you familiar with Autism on the Seas?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had a chance to interview them, and that is such an amazing group as well. Pam's, let's see. We got a couple here. Here, no barriers. Yes. Yeah, and Pam, we do NCL. I have done NCL a lot. Not recently, just because we have all these other people we've never done.
Right.
Yeah, and I really appreciate, first of all, your time today, Angela. But I appreciate what you're doing. And the effort you're putting into it. I'm trying to do something like that on a more global scale, and it is, like I said, it's so needed. And people that people that aren't trying to do those things have no concept of how challenging that process is.
Right. Well, this is a club that you can join at any time. No reservations needed. Yeah. It crosses every socioeconomic, gender identity, sexual orientation, all of race, any construct that can be to try and put people in certain buckets. It's universal. So yeah, and people are so intersectional. I'm not just, for example, a cis, white, heterosexual female presenting. I have vision issues. Heck, if I tear my knee up again, I'll have a short-term disability. And a lot of those, it's not just you're in one disability category or short-term, long-term, whatever, or you're not. That's even so blurry as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. We interviewed the young woman that is the director for visitdenali.org. She was on the show last week, and she talked about the fact that
Right.
she had to have both. Was it both hips? I'm pretty sure it was both
I
hips.
don't remember.
Yeah, she had surgery. I think it was on both hips, and she was in a wheelchair for a while. And she said it just opened her eyes so
Mhm.
much because she had no idea of the challenges that you face. You know, and again, it was temporary. At least she got to get out of it. But it's, you know, like I said, it affects so many of us.
Yeah, and she realized that in Alaska, you know, the more rural you go, the harder it can be to
Oh
find
my
resources.
goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't even tried to think about planning a trip to Alaska because, yeah, I'm concerned about the physicality requirements.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will have to share this with you.
But yeah. Oh,
Alaska is probably more accessible than many places, even in the lower 48. This girl I was telling you about that we interviewed, she talked about she did a train trip in Alaska, and she got off in Talkeetna, which is a little town between Anchorage and Fairbanks in the middle of nowhere, and they had an accessible taxi. Yeah.
a roll in fully. Wow.
The
Yeah,
trains,
because she's a para, so she's a full-time wheelchair user.
the
Right.
trains have a crank system.
Yeah,
Like
correct.
you can get up, you roll onto their lift with your wheelchair, and then they hand crank you up to where they let you into the train. It's
Oh,
pretty
my son would love that.
And they have an
That would
elevator.
be cool.
They have an elevator in the train to take you up to the observation car.
Nice.
But you know, Skagway is really nice. Ketchikan's a little bit. Ketchikan's problem is it's hilly. You know, so you know the roads and stuff aren't bad. It's just hilly. But we were able to find some things. It was kind of funny that we did an excursion where they took Cheryl and they put her basically in the back of a ute, you know, sitting on the back of a ute.
Right.
And because the tides changed so much that it was like a slope like this. It was kind of like the hill we walked up today, except it was not nearly as long as the
Makes
hill
me
we
think
went
of Lombard Street. That's got anywhere in
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah, but these are straight down. Lombard least curves.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I couldn't imagine if your brakes went out going just in San Francisco anywhere.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But so that, you know, and they had a boardwalk that went out to this really old cypress tree, and but it went out into the rainforest, you know, and you couldn't walk through it anyway without the boardwalk because it was all
Right.
musketing and stuff. But the train, the Alaskan Railroad is super accessible. Skagway is perfectly flat. Most of the buildings are accessible. There is accessible, a wheelchair accessible tour into Denali. I'm working on
Nice.
getting that for our trip to Alaska this year.
Okay.
And the cruise ships are really more accessible than ever. The newer ones are really nice.
Right.
And some of the ports you can't get to without taking a boat anyway, so you might as well take a cruise ship.
But yeah, Seward's a really nice town. A little bit of hill, but not bad. They have a really cool aquarium there. It was funded by the Exxon Valdez, and they do
Yeah, they do like
rehab.
Yeah, rehab for the animals there. So, and you can watch it.
Well, yeah, because they that was not a fun thing to even watch on TV. I remember that.
Yeah.
But so like I said, I would not view Alaska as non-accessible.
You just got to be picky. Well, I mean, just make sure you ask enough questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it can all be mapped, and businesses will want to say, "Hey, we're not talking to 15% of the population who want to spend money, and I'd rather have them spend it in my business."
Yeah.
So making this information more readily available increases their profit.
Right.
Exactly.
And the whole family. It's usually the handicappers, I think, would normally travel with the family. So you
Exactly.
family.
Exactly. Yeah. So take as many people as you think might come into your shop, multiply it by 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I said, I would, if it's something that interests you, we can connect offline because I can help you find the resources, because it is, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, very accessible. You know, you have this mental picture of, okay, this is not going to work because it's mountains and all of these things. But
Ice
there are
road
so many-
truckers and yeah, that's
yeah,
you think
exactly.
wolves and big open spaces.
Yeah, but there are things to do. There's in Fairbanks, there's a riverboat that's fully accessible. They have they don't do translation, but they have scripts of all the narration as it goes along.
That's great.
But it's completely accessible. They have like headphones for those that are, or might be sounds might bother. Yeah, to do
That's
that.
great. Well, that might need to be 2024. Next year, this year, we're hopefully still growing on a cruise. And then that's this year. Next year's Japan through my son's middle school.
Oh, nice.
As his parents and caregivers, they opened it up. And plus Japan, I mean, that's like a once in a lifetime kind of thing. So
Okay.
I guess it'll probably be 2024 if we decide to go to Alaska.
Okay.
So I'll be a little more, not as apprehensive. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ken and Cheryl, for telling me about all that.
Okay, and I will connect you with a gentleman. His name is Josh Grisdale, and he's in Japan in a power chair, and so he can tell you about the things that you'll need to know, because Japan is a little different. Medicine in particular is a challenge when you visit Japan, so there's some things you want to think about there. These kinds of things, these conversations right here are the kinds of things that people should be able to find easily.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Josh he's really good. He's been on my show, and I'll get you connected on LinkedIn and
oh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, the school is having a tour, so we had to really ask questions. Did it make sense? Our son is partially ambulatory. We can move him around. We'll probably bring his collapsible wheelchair because we don't want anything to break. And if it does break, it's a $300 fix instead of a $6,000, $10,000 full wheelchair fix. So we're negotiable in some things. So yeah. Whew.
Well, very cool.
But I'd be very interested in speaking with him. And thank you so much for the offer to connect.
Not a problem.
We're in this together, right? It's about our entire community.
It is, and that's what I do. Is I view what I do as trying to find ways to help people.
Oh yeah,
just like what you do is focused on helping people. Hopefully, in the long term, it'll have some rewards. But I get more satisfaction from finding somebody that's watched one of my videos and put a comment in there. Thank you so much. This answered the question, or it helped me. That is so valuable to me. Mm-hmm. In being able to help people, enjoy life a little more.
Absolutely. Plus, by doing things and seeing new places, it enriches you and it can change you. It can change your outlook. It can change your trajectory in life, especially if you see it when you're younger as well. It's like, I want to reduce as many barriers to open as many doors and to have as many experiences, especially with specifically my family. But yeah, it changes you going. I mean, Japan, even I'm 49, but even that experience is going to change me because I have the ability to go there.
Yeah, we lived in Japan for 2 years, so you'll love it.
Yeah, we lived in Okinawa. I give my son a hard time. He'll hate me if he sees this video. But I tell his daughter, our granddaughter, that he has a label on his rear end that says "Made in Japan."
It was a beautiful place.
Silly. You were silly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been such an honor to be asked to be on this program. I want to thank you both so much. And we had a great conversation before when we were just getting introduced, and I had known about your show, which with everything with my business, it's like I can only consume other people's content to a smaller degree, but yes, I could amazingly see all the value that you were providing.
Oh,
Really.
and I
Thank
appreciate
you
the
so
kind
much.
words. And
Yep. Thanks a lot.
okay, so we'll say goodbye to the audience. Everybody, we'll see you next week. Next week, Kristen Secor is going to be here. We're going to talk about planning road trips and planning disabled travel in general. She'll be a good guest as well. So, and that one will be live from the Carnival Panorama because we will be on board the ship. We board on tomorrow. I lose track.
Hopefully you paid for your Wi-Fi package and all that.
The Wi-Fi gets paid first, you know.
Priorities. Absolutely. You got to prioritize.
And we made the mistake on another cruise line. They have a policy, and it's probably, in my view, the least accessible of the cruise lines. Their new ship's better than some of their old ships. And I'll just give you an example. The cabin we had was basically the same size as a standard cabin, except the bathroom was and there was just barely enough room for Cheryl to get her wheelchair over to the ramp to get up out onto the balcony. But the bed was right there by the door, and the ramp was just a wooden ramp that somebody had built to go up, which means that every time I came out my side of the bed, I stubbed my toe.
Yeah.
And tripped.
Oh. And they stick it on there saying, okay, good enough, compliant. It's not enjoyment. It's not being delighted. It's okay, check mark.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we will say goodbye to the audience. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.